The night was cold, and the city slept under a thick blanket of silence. But in a small neighborhood, chaos was about to unfold. Inside a cozy little house at the end of the street, Emily lay fast asleep, unaware that danger was creeping in. Flames had started to dance along the kitchen walls, the smoke thickening by the second. The fire alarm should have gone off, but it didn't. Emily had no idea she was trapped in a death trap. But someone else in the house did. Her cat, Whiskers. Whiskers was no ordinary cat. He had always been unusually intelligent, always sensing things before they happened. And tonight was no different. As the thick, black smoke filled the house, Whiskers knew something was terribly wrong. The fire had started from an electrical fault in the kitchen. Within minutes, the flames spread toward the living room, licking the walls hungrily. The smoke crept up the staircase like a silent predator, heading straight toward Emily's bedroom. Whiskers leaped onto the bed and began pawing at Emily's face, but she groaned and turned over. He tried again, this time clawing at her blanket, pulling it with all his strength. Still, no response. Emily was inhaling the toxic smoke, slipping deeper into unconsciousness. The fire was spreading fast. The wooden beams of the house started to crackle, and an eerie orange glow flickered under the bedroom door. If Whiskers didn't act now, Emily wouldn't wake up, ever. Whiskers knew he had to do something drastic. He jumped onto Emily's chest and meowed as loudly as he could, scratching at her arm. But she only stirred slightly. The smoke was getting thicker, and time was running out. Then, an idea struck him that he leaped off the bed, sprinted to the door, and started scratching at it furiously. But the door handle was out of reach. He needed another way to wake her up, fast. His sharp eyes darted around the room and landed on something, a glass of water sitting on the nightstand. Without hesitating, Whiskers jumped onto the table and pushed the glass with all his strength. Crash. The water splashed onto Emily's face, jolting her awake. She gasped, coughing violently as the acrid smoke hit her lungs. Her eyes widened in terror as she saw the flickering flames under the door. Whiskers, she choked out, grabbing the cat instinctively. But there was no time to think. The fire was closing in. Emily stumbled out of bed, disoriented, her head spinning from the smoke inhalation. She tried the bedroom door, but it was too hot to touch. Trapped. Her heart pounded. The fire was outside, and she had no way out. Panic started to set in. That's when she noticed Whiskers, running toward the window. He meowed desperately, looking back at her. Emily understood instantly. The window. But there was one problem, it was jammed shut. Emily ran toward it, but the heat in the room was unbearable. The smoke was suffocating her. She fumbled with the window lock, her fingers slipping. She felt herself getting dizzy again. If she lost consciousness now, it would be over. But Whiskers wasn't giving up. Just as Emily's vision blurred, Whiskers did the unthinkable. He jumped onto the window ledge and began slamming his body against the glass, over and over again. Emily, barely holding on, watched in shock. Whiskers let out a final, powerful pounce, and the glass cracked. That was all she needed. With the last ounce of strength left in her, Emily grabbed the nearest object, a lamp, and smashed the weakened glass. Fresh air rushed in, fueling her desperate need to escape. Without a second thought, she lifted Whiskers and climbed onto the ledge. The ground was 2 stories below. Jumping was risky, but staying meant death. She held Whiskers tightly, took a deep breath, and jumped. Emily landed hard on the lawn, rolling to absorb the impact. Her arms tightened around Whiskers, protecting him. For a moment, everything was silent. Then, a deafening explosion. She turned in horror as the flames consumed the entire upper floor. The house was gone. If Whiskers hadn't woken her up, she would have been inside, trapped in that inferno. Sirens wailed in the distance. Firefighters and neighbors rushed toward her. Someone wrapped a blanket around her shaking body. But all she could do was hold Whiskers close, tears streaming down her face. "You saved my life," she whispered, burying her face in his fur. Whiskers just purred softly, as if to say, I told you I'd always protect you. The next day, the news spread like wildfire. Fearless cat saves owner from house fire, flashed across headlines. The firefighters couldn't believe it. A cat had done what even fire alarms failed to do. People called Whiskers a hero. The local fire department even honored him with a tiny medal for bravery. But to Emily, he was more than a hero, he was family. As she stood outside the burned remains of her house, she knew one thing for certain, as long as she had Whiskers by her side, she could rebuild anything. And she would never take a single day, or a single purr, for granted again.